Congratulations. You just retired with $500,000. Tomorrow morning, no paycheck arrives. Your friends think you're set for life. Then you open your retirement spreadsheet and realize something terrifying. $500,000 has to replace a paycheck for the next 30 years. That's about 10,950 mornings. You don't know it yet, but by year 3, one single afternoon is going to cost you more than you spent on groceries all year. You sit down and actually build the budget. Not a guess, real numbers. Housing costs on the place you're in right now? $500 a month. Utilities? $100. Food? $200. Health costs? $250. Transportation? $100. A little entertainment, because you're still a person. $50. Everything else, gifts, repairs, the unexpected, $200. Total, $1,400 a month, about $16,800 a year, just to live. You stare at that number for a while. It's tighter than you expected.
But you have $500,000. You have Social Security coming. You tell yourself it'll work. Here's what you don't factor in yet. That $1,400 isn't fixed. Inflation doesn't retire when you do. By year 15, the same groceries, the same utility bill, the same everything will cost you closer to $2,200 a month. Just to stand still, just to keep living the exact same life you budgeted today. Nobody hands you that number on day one. You find out gradually, a receipt at a time. But that's later. Right now, you're just trying to figure out where you're even going to live. You start wondering whether you should stay in the house you raised your family in. The bedrooms are empty now. The yard takes longer to mow than it used to. The stairs feel a little steeper. And every year, the property tax bill still arrives, asking for money from a paycheck that no longer exists. For the first time, you seriously ask a question that would have sounded impossible 10 years ago. Should you sell the house? Stay and you keep the memories, the neighbors, the grandkids down the street, doctors who already know your history. Move and you get lower costs, less upkeep, and financial breathing room you didn't know you needed. There's no wrong answer here, but there's a very wrong way to make this decision without doing the math first. So you start comparing states. Hawaii, almost $99,000 a year just to live comfortably. Mississippi, about $40,000 a year for the same lifestyle.
Same country, same Social Security check. A $59,000 gap, just based on your zip code. And then, late one night, staring at that gap on a map, it hits you. You're seriously considering leaving the house you raised your kids in because of a tax table. You start pricing out what selling would actually buy you. The same money that barely gets a starter home in one state buys a house outright, free and clear in another. Then comes the trap nobody warns you about. The no income tax state also comes with an $8,000 a year property tax bill on a home this size. Forever. Meanwhile, quieter states like Illinois, Iowa, Mississippi, and Pennsylvania tax none of your retirement income at all, Social Security included. The billboard states aren't always the ones that actually save you money. You decide that selling is probably the smarter financial move. It's the right call on paper, and it still means holidays are now a plane ticket instead of a drive. The appraisal comes back at $310,000. The smaller place near your new state costs $100,000. That leaves $210,000. Money that has nothing to do with your original $500,000. Extra room you didn't have yesterday. One more number waiting in that spreadsheet. Someone in your position would probably collect around $2,071 a month from Social Security. Or, had you waited until 70, as much as $5,181. And depending on your other income, up to 85% of it can still be taxed. You didn't do anything wrong. You just didn't know the rules of a game you were already playing. Now, the number that actually decides whether you make it 30 years or 15. Old rule of thumb? Withdraw 4% of your savings a year. On $500,000, that's $20,000. But newer research says 4% might be too aggressive because of something called sequence of returns risk. Crashing your first few years and pulling the same fixed amount out can permanently wreck your savings, even if the market fully recovers later. It's not the average return over 30 years that gets you. It's what happens in the first 3. So you play it safer. 3.5%, about $17,500 a year for you. Combine it with Social Security. Tight, but it works. This is the moment many retirees realize that retirement is not a finish line. It's a second career in managing uncertainty. 18 months in, the market drops 22% in 4 months. You sit at your kitchen table doing math you swore you'd never have to do again. Here's the part nobody says out loud. Your 401k doesn't know you're retired. It doesn't care that you're out of paychecks. The market crashes exactly as hard for you as it does for the 28-year-old still working. The only difference is he has 40 years to wait it out. You have a Tuesday. This is it. The bill we told you about at the start. It's July. The kind of heat that makes the walls feel warm to the touch. You notice the house hasn't cooled off by 9 p.m. Then you hear it. A low clunk from the unit outside. Then nothing. Just silence where the hum used to be. The technician comes out the next morning, taps a gauge, shakes his head in the way technicians do right before they ruin your week. Replacement cost? $6,400. That's more than 4 months of your entire budget. Gone. In one afternoon. Because a machine in your attic decided to quit in July. You pull from your cash cushion instead of your investments because you know better than to sell stocks in the middle of a bad stretch. It works. This time. But you start doing something you didn't expect to be doing at this age. Flinching every time something in the house makes a new sound. Here's what nobody puts in the retirement brochure. Surviving on $500,000 isn't really a math problem. It's a discipline problem wearing a math costume. It means standing in a grocery store, deciding between the $4 coffee and the $2 one. It means watching your kids post vacation photos while you quietly recalculate whether you can afford to run the AC a little longer this month. It means telling your grandkids next time so many times that eventually they stop asking if you're coming. You didn't retire poor. You retired careful. And careful, after enough years, starts to feel a lot like poor. Somewhere around here, you start calling retirement a part-time job where the only client is your own spreadsheet. You're only half joking. It's also the first time you've laughed about any of this in weeks. But here's the twist. There are programs built to quietly close gaps like the one that AC bill just opened, and most people in your position never apply. Either nobody tells them or it feels like giving up. You look into it. A produce voucher program worth $20 to $50 a year. A monthly grocery box worth about $50 if your income qualifies. Help with your heating and cooling bill. A program that will insulate your home for free, permanently lowering what you pay every month after. A federal tax credit worth up to $7,500 that almost nobody applies for, simply because almost nobody knows it exists. Stack a few of these together, and you've just found an extra $1,800 a year without touching a single investment. Roughly what that AC bill cost you, quietly recovered over time. You also pick up a little work, not a job, a thing. A few shifts at a golf course, tutoring a neighbor's kid, flipping a few finds off Craigslist. By year's end, it's added another $6,000 you didn't have before. None of this shows up in the headlines that scream you need $2 million to retire. Headlines don't sell modesty. They sell fear. Here's where it settles. Mississippi. No tax on Social Security, claimed at 67, about $24,000 a year. The 3.5% withdrawal you settled on after the crash, another $17,500 from your $500K. After state tax, you keep roughly $40,800 a year. Your home cost $100,000, a piece of the $310,000 you got selling the house you raised your kids in. The other $210,000 sits invested, completely separate from your original $500,000. Real breathing room that isn't baked into any of the numbers above. Total living costs, adjusted honestly for inflation instead of frozen in time, about $35,000 a year, with 2 years of expenses sitting in cash so a market drop never forces a bad sale. It's not the beach and the cocktail from the brochure. It's a paid-off house in a town most people have never heard of, a grocery budget with a little room in it, an AC that finally works again, and a Tuesday where nothing bad happens. You started this with $500,000 and a fantasy. Palm trees, no alarm clock, freedom. What you actually end up with is smaller and stranger than freedom. It's enough. A number that doesn't scare you when you check it. A social security check that shows up on time. A grocery list you don't have to shorten. $500,000 was never going to buy you the life in the brochure, but it can buy you something the brochure never mentions. 30 years, 10,950 mornings of not being afraid to open your bank statement. And for most people, that turns out to be worth more than the palm trees ever were.